Well, for more on that, I'm joined by Alex Booth, Head of Research at Kpler. Alex, thank you for joining me. Brent is back up above $75 a barrel. Where do you see prices heading in the second half of 2021?
Hi, Emma. Emma, thanks. We're now less than $1 below the kind of where we topped out towards the start of July. Um, I think there is kind of limited upside from where we are now. As you mentioned earlier, there are still some real concerns around the general demand environment. That's both from the Delta variant, but then also from some broader kind of economic signs that we're seeing from the likes of China. Yes, the refinery runs have been very strong in the latest reported numbers, but we've also seen quite a slowdown in their imports. So there are, say, some concerns about general economic situation. That said, we think that demand is going to continue to steadily improve. Yes, there is more oil coming from OPEC Plus. That's going to alleviate some of the shortfall that we've seen really in the last few months. But it is going to keep the market relatively tight, essentially. So given the structure in the market, it will roll up along the curve. But can I see us moving kind of significantly through 80, for example? I think that's very difficult still with all of these demand concerns, basically.
So you touched on it briefly there, the Delta variant, of course, and a rise of COVID cases really across the world at the moment. Do you think that that's going to have an impact on demand in the short and long term?
I mean, the Delta variant is an incredibly interesting one from an oil demand point of view. Um, the way that we're seeing it is primarily a phenomenon or an impacting phenomenon for the Eastern Hemisphere. In Europe, as you say, the vaccination rate is high. There's this steady reopening. Are we going to see any big surprises? Probably not. Similarly, in America, again, good vaccination rates, but there the behaviors are different. So what we might see is, whilst you see case rates potentially rising and hopefully not so much, but deaths rising as well, that actually behaviors in the US will just continue for various reasons, whether it's in the more typically red states versus blue states. Um, Demand should still be strong through the summer. In Asia, the problem is that those vaccination rates just aren't there yet. And so where you do have these rising cases, they are kind of massively impacting the local population. And we see this real slowdown in demand growth. Were people forecasting strong gains in oil demand from kind of non-China Asia? I don't think so much. So it's really just kind of keeping a lid on things, but should it really have a big impact in the oil markets? I don't think so from now on, basically.
And finally, Alex, with no real concrete progress in the ongoing US-Iran nuclear talks, how could this stalemate impact oil prices, do you think?
And the Iran-US talks are a very interesting situation whereby it's all the rhetoric is always difficult between these parties. It's always the other party that is to blame for any slowdown or anything. We do have a situation where, because of the change in the administration in Iran, because of the elections recently, it was our view that things were going to slow down anyway. It sounds like there is a bit of a discussion within the Iranian government as to who essentially gets the kind of the ultimate final word on being able to say, yes, we resolved the sanctions, we were able to bring back our oil production. And it's moving towards the fact that that will be the new administration. We also think that the fact that a lot of the new administration, new government are on or the likely new government are also on the sanctions list, means that there's a greater incentive to delay so that they can actually renegotiate around those points. So ultimately, we think a deal will come. It's likely to come kind of once the new administration is in place, once we have the new president. And then the issue is, well, where do we go with flat price? I think the market is generally expecting there to be a deal. I think, Phil, that's kind of the baked in scenario. So then it's all around timing. OPEC Plus are already factoring this in, by kind of embedding this 3-month pause into their agreement that will essentially allow for an extra kind of 1.2 million barrels a day over the period of Iranian crude to kind of come back online. We feel that 400,000 barrels a day is a fairly steady increase as well. So by the time that we actually see Iranian crude on the market, we'll be needing it, basically.
It's going to stick around in the headlines for a while, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex
Yeah.
Booth, Head of Research at Kpler.